Welcome to Mastering Your Financial Life, hosted by Judy Heft, the founder and CEO of Judith Heft and Associates, Financial and Lifestyle Concierge. This year, she's celebrating 27 years in business. In every episode, Judy interviews professionals who help others successfully manage their financial lives. You can find this show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Judy is the author of 2 books, How to Be Smart, Successful, and Organized with Your Money for a Better Today and Tomorrow, and her latest book, Mastering Your Financial Life Cycles, How to Successfully Manage Money in Every Decade of Life. You can read chapters of her books and catch prior episodes of the show at www.judithheft.com. Now, here's the host of Mastering Your Financial Life, Judy Heft.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to episode 73 of Mastering Your Financial Life. And today I'm really thrilled to be here with my favorite business attorney, Scott Mautner. I've known Scott for a lot of years, and I'm just really thrilled to be able to talk to him today. Scott's currently counsel to Harrington, Acko, and Monk. And he's a very versatile business attorney, focuses on providing practical business advice with a legal lean to it, which is really great. And he specializes in formations of companies, mergers and acquisitions, shareholder disputes, real estate, and all different kinds of other things, whatever is related to that. He does a lot more than I just said. So Scott, welcome today.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here as well.
Oh, great. So, tell us about some of the deals that you work on.
So there's basically 3 sides to my practice. The first is mergers and acquisitions, where I represent clients that buy and sell companies. The deals range anywhere from the smallest, they'll be about $750,000 to the largest I've done is about $140 million. The second part of my practice is startup financing, which is where companies are raising money from third-party investors. I do generally friends and family rounds and through a Series A or a Series B, and then a lot of times the companies get, they get so large that they want to go to a bigger provider, which is fair and reasonable. And those deals usually from valuation go from anywhere as small as $500,000 to as large as like 30 or 40 million. And then I do what lawyers call outsource general counsel, but I provide people with advice, shareholders agreements, LLC operating agreements, employment related issues, and generally solving problems. There's, a lot of people don't realize they have legal problems till they actually sit down and think about, oh, wait, this is really a legal issue versus a business or some other issue.
Yeah, so we don't know what we don't know, which is
right. Exactly.
It really comes out. So, what does it mean to be outside general counsel?
So the middle part of my career, I spent as an actual general counsel, as the head lawyer for a number of mid-market companies, online securities broker dealer, telecom company, and a Spanish language newspaper company. And so when I started my practice about 12, 14 years ago, I took that experience and that knowledge of actually working with CEOs and CFOs in the C-level suite and moving it. So when I'm dealing with clients, which is probably a little bit different than a lot of business lawyers, I'm looking at not just a lot of the legal issues, but using that experience on the business side, how to deal with problems, how to deal with, companies face all kinds of issues. So they have employment issues, people who aren't performing, how do you get them to perform, sales issues, revenues issues, and I've been involved in all of those at the ground floor level.
So when you're helping somebody with merger or an acquisition of that type of thing, so say they're the one that they're the seller. So do you work with them to help them after, it's all said and done, and then there's going to have to be an employment agreement because usually the principal is asked to stay on for a year or 2 or longer. So is that something that you handle too?
Yeah, exactly. So usually what happens is when someone sells the business, there's a transition period. Sometimes the founders / owners want to stay on longer, sometimes less. I've done transition agreements as short as 30 days, a month, and as long as 3 years, which is a pretty good C-level employment agreement. And you negotiate the terms, and it's a regular employment agreement at that time. And then there's always, like, I have a client who sold their business 3 years ago. They're still under their employment agreement, but they've renegotiated a number of times because the company actually doesn't need the same level of service that they needed originally. So they kind of massage and update the relationship to make it more fit the job that needs to be done as the relationship evolves.
So there's so many different twists and turns there that people don't think about. They're saying, I want to sell my business. And then all of a sudden there's so much that they have to handle. It's interesting.
100%. Yep.
And so what about startups? You work with a lot of startup companies too?
Yep. It's usually in the technology field. My practice is really industry agnostic. So I represent everybody from industrials to tech companies to I've represented accounting firms, law firms, professionals, other professionals. So startup is usually in the tech world though. And the reality is that what happens is someone wants to build a business, they have an idea, and you start from ground zero. How do I raise, $200,000? How can I convince people to give me that money? What is the structure of that? And then something a lot of people don't really understand in the startup world, it's all related to securities laws. So you have to fit your financing within certain security law exemptions and things like that. So there's no registration. So it becomes a little more complicated. But in the startup world, usually the first couple rounds, you do something called a SAFE or a convertible note. And that's the easiest way to get money in the door. And then as you raise more money and as your valuation goes up, you'll convert that to what's called Series Seed or Series Preferred Stock.
So what kind of companies are those that are doing all of that in the startup? Or those, you mentioned tech a little bit, but what is that?
Mostly tech, mostly what you see out in the marketplace. So I have a client that does logistic technology. I have another client that actually operates an e-commerce website. Those are two examples of companies right now that are out in the marketplace looking for money.
Interesting. So do you work with any startup companies that aren't looking for money? So for instance, when I started my business 27 years ago, I just kind of grew it organically. I didn't bring a lawyer in. I didn't, I got the articles of organization done, but I just went out there and started a business.
Sure. Yeah. So that's the traditional way. And that's what we call the OG way, right? And you file your certificate of incorporation or now your LLC, articles of organization, and you start to run a business. But when you do that, you obviously need to get tax ID numbers, whether you're hiring employees, whether you can have consultants, and there's a whole area of the law, whether someone's an employee or a consultant, and whether they should be paid on a W-2 or a 1099. So I help with that. Then there's, vendor agreements. Do you want to have a standard form vendor agreement? So when you hire third parties to provide you services, you give them your contract. Do you want to have a standard form customer agreement, and how do you do that? And then sort of HR and all that sort of thing. So yeah, that's part of traditional, startup, not financing law.
There's a lot to think about there.
Yep.
There's so many different avenues. And I think the average person like myself, in starting a business doesn't know all these different things that you have to do. And without having an experienced lawyer on your side, you can run into some hot water, I would think.
Yeah. Look, most of the things in the corporate world are fixable. Sometimes you miss tax filing deadlines. That becomes harder. Things in litigation are not always fixable. So like I try to say to clients, like, if you have a claim against you, definitely get into a lawyer and definitely talk to them about that. Obviously, if you think you missed some laws and you're in violation of laws, yeah, you should talk to a lawyer, obviously, but the latter is a little bit easier to fix than litigation and claims.
Well, I always think it's really important to talk to a professional anyway, just to get some tips and pointers, even if you don't go that route, because I'm not an accountant. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a wealth manager. And so it's great to have a good team around me. That's the way I look at it, to help me, find these things that I didn't know I was going to need to do.
Right. And that's part of when we were talking about being a general counsel type person. It's helping the client build the team. Who's the right accountant for them? Who may be a right HR compliance department person that you need? Do they need sales help? Do they need other help? It sort of all falls in the same bucket.
Oh, that's great to know. I didn't know all of that. So that's great. Let's take a little break here now, and then we're going to come back and talk some more. We're here with Scott Mautner.
Hey there. I just want to tell you a little bit about my new book that just came out called Mastering Your Financial Life Cycles. And here it is. It's how to successfully manage your money in every decade of life. I co-authored this with my CFO, Liz Levy. And together we created this manual that's going to help you through every stage of life. We talk about having a baby. We talk about young adulthood, pre-retirement, what to do when you're at that age of retirement. If you're contemplating divorce, do you need an estate plan? We cover all of these, each subject in a different chapter. And I really think that you're going to find this so helpful because at the end of every chapter, we have checklists that you can look at and you can use, and they can be a guide for you. So this is a wonderful manual that we've created. It's available on Amazon. You can also find it on our website at judithheft.com/book. And we're here for you. If you need anything, reach out. I hope you enjoy the book. Here's another picture of it, just so you know what's going on. Here it is. And I'm really proud of it. It's my second book. And I'd love to have you read it and give me your feedback. Judy Heft, judithheft.com, financial and lifestyle concierge, celebrating 26 years in business. And over the years, I've learned so much. And what I've been trying to do is impart a little bit of this knowledge to you so I can help all of you become as financially organized as I am.
And we're back with Scott Mautner. So Scott, I think there's a misconception out there. I think sometimes people are afraid to call their lawyers because they know the clock's going to be ticking and they don't want to spend the money. So they try to figure stuff out themselves, which is not really the smart way to do it. So how can companies use their attorneys more effectively? What's the best way?
That's a really good question. I think so. I have clients that send me agreements and say, okay, review this and look at it and tell me your comments. And so I think the first thing is, outline what it is you're trying to get out of the deal, outline what you're trying to do, outline the problem the best you know about it. We, as lawyers, were taught to kind of focus in on the issues and figure out what the legal side of those issues might be. And so it allows us to kind of think about things and then get on the phone and talk to them. Because, lawyers don't know everything. And it's no different than if you were going to your doctor, you would kind of walk into an office with the doctor and you wouldn't just say, here's whatever. You kind of want to outline what you're feeling, how you're feeling, and kind of talk them through it. And it's the same thing with lawyers.
That's good to know, because I really do think people are afraid to hire professionals sometimes, which is a big mistake.
You end up, look, I know lawyers are expensive and I know it's a cost and it's not a revenue producing activity for any company. But the reality is, in a lot of instances, you can save money by avoiding problems. And when you think you have a problem, it might be a 5-minute conversation that you get the advice that you don't, and then you can move on with your life. But if you do have a problem, it's better to address it sooner rather than later.
Oh, I absolutely agree 100%. I think, hiring the best lawyer and the best accountant and the best financial concierge or wealth manager, whatever it is you need, can save you money in the long run. And 100%. I think that's an important thing to know. So Scott, this was great. So how can our listeners find you?
So I'm at smauntner@homlegal.com, or my phone number is 914-686-4800.
And they can also find you on LinkedIn, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course, LinkedIn, and I think that's probably all the social media there is.
That's good. Well, thanks for being here today. It was a great conversation. I know I learned a lot. Thanks,
okay, Scott. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning into Mastering Your Financial Life, hosted by Judy Heft. You can read chapters of her books and catch prior episodes of the show at www.judithheft.com. www.judithheft.com. Thank you for your positive comments and sharing this show with others.